So I would agree with that statement. Security as a discipline has evolved. The threats have evolved. And certainly applications are possibly the highest risk area right now. And that's partly due to the expansion of the application surface, the number of applications you have, the fact that they're all web enabled and therefore accessible and exposed. And also, skill level of the attackers and the fact that right now it's possibly the easiest place to break in. And we see this in our incident data. We've profiled, we know where we get our attacks from, and categorically application security is up there as number one. So does that mean we need more education? Absolutely. Applies to everyone. It's been a massive focus for us over the last year, educating absolutely everyone in the company, not just developers. Total agreement.
The one that always makes this interesting, so we all agree that this would be really great to be all educated and to be working together, but how is it going to look like on Monday morning? What are we going to do? That's part of the challenges. So we can't quite go to our CEOs and say, we have this fantastic idea, we will all work together and for a week we will educate ourselves. That would be difficult to sell.
Microsoft did it.
Did they?
With the trusted initiative.
Yes.
They stopped shipping, delayed everything, put everyone through loads of training,
yes.
and then produced software that still contains plenty of critical security bugs. But I think they say it's better. Yeah, and I think that's possibly the thing where it's very hard to tell the difference between reasonably secure and very secure software. And I guess until you can do that, it becomes very hard to tell whether you are working successfully together, you are making progress.
So is it the definition of done that we're after? What is it going to look like once we're finished?
It's about technical debt as well, I suppose. How much
technical
debt, how much technical debt you accumulate along the way. So, for example, you cited Microsoft, which is a good example in the industry of how to build a software security initiative. And okay, so they might build secure going forward, but then there's all that body of code that's been in their product suite for the past 20, 30 years, and some of that occasionally comes back still to haunt them, and that's this sort of mountain of technical debt that's been built up. So fixing it going forward is one thing, but then dealing with the debts, I think is another element of that.
Yeah. I think there's something fascinating about the metaphors we use to describe the processes. So we talk about software engineering, we talk about builds, as if it's some majestic bridge we're building across some great chasm and we have to make sure it's safe and secure. And I think there's a much better metaphor about, one of the ones is food safety. So the idea...
Is it horse?
Sorry? Is it horse? Yeah, that's the supply chain, definitely in there. But equally, everyone cooking, there's a whole set of things that help produce minimum standards of food. I mean, that generally when I came in here this evening, I didn't have to set a functional requirement. Oh, by the way, can I have the meal that isn't poisoned, please? It was an assumption that I didn't have to specify that, and I received it. And quite a lot of food production is done by relatively unskilled individuals, fresh out of school, who are still able to produce very high quality, safe food. And that isn't because they have the skills, but because there are processes, qualifications, liabilities, inspections. There's a whole ecosystems of things that in civilized countries are dedicated to producing safe food. And I guess there's some interesting read across about, okay, so assuming I can't have expert coders writing all my code, how do I give them frameworks and tools that make it harder for them to poison everybody with bad food? How do I make sure the components they're putting in are safe?
But then if we look at the food industry, particularly in Europe, for example, I mean, surely, that's now mature, right? That's now a commodity. It's still going through optimization, but then we compare it to the software business, right? And if you pick the technologies you work with today, for example, I mean, how many of those existed 10 years ago, or how many of those are even taught in a university class? Are these are we at that sort of plateau in software engineering or software technologies that we can even say that we can sort of put things in those boxes and, you know, define that structure.